We like to,
Sorry.
that's fine. So we're going to start recorder. So it's 7:35 on September 25th. We'll call this meeting to order. Um, the minutes went out with the newsletter. Does anybody have any changes to the meeting, to the minutes that they'd like to mention? I move we accept last month's last month's minutes as they were presented.
Second.
Thank you. There we go. And let's get right into our police report. And who are we going to hear from first? Officer Zaidan or?
Yeah, I'll let Officer Zaidan go ahead and give an update about what's going on in Beat 1, and I'll just be here to field any questions that you may have that I can assist you with.
Okie dokie.
So, Officer Zaidan, it's on you.
Perhaps.
Yeah. And you are not muted, so it's not on our end. Officer,
Can you try to unmute?
he's not muted on our end. Oh, now he's muted. Now he's unmuted. No, I think that that's something local, a mute that is
Okay.
local on your end, not on ours. Still can't hear you.
Some folks look frozen. Do we want to let Officer Moody start instead?
Sure.
Is that all right?
Do you mind?
No, not at all. I think some of the things that Officer Zaidan was going to talk about is we've been fielding a bunch of complaints over at the Baltic for noise complaints. We've been addressing some issues with their permits and what they're actually permitted to do. They're supposed to be a bar slash restaurant, and they're kind of functioning as a lounge slash nightclub right now. So we're looking into the permits and what they're actually able to do. We're issuing reports and citations at this time, and the city is aware of all these calls for service that we're responding to for noise violations. I know we're having some problems over at 3 West Richmond. That seems to have kind of subsided. Doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of calls for service that we've been addressing over there anymore. So the attention that they've been getting has obviously made some improvements over there. I know Philip has told us that there's been some possible narcotics activity that's been going off over by that area. So we've been kind of addressing people who've been just loitering out in that area. And I think that's kind of like the biggest thing that we've been addressing right now. Sideshow activities. We still have some sideshow activities going on at Canal at the dead end. The weekend graveyard shift is the one that's primarily been addressing that issue. Officer Gravetti is aware of all those sideshow activities, so she's been spending a lot of time down in there for police patrol presence and deterring them from actually going down to that location to have sideshow activities. And those are primarily the biggest things that have been occurring down in Point Richmond. Calls for service are pretty limited right now down there. It seems like things are pretty good down in that general area, unless you guys have anything else that you want us to address or something that maybe that's not on my radar. Just go ahead and feel free to talk to us, and we'll see what we can do to address those.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Officer Moody?
Just one quick question. Officer,
yes, ma'am.
That the second place that you were talking about, where you said things had quieted down, but maybe there had been some narcotics activity?
Over at 3 West Richmond.
Okay.
Peggy, that's the Todd Hotel, the brick building.
Okay.
On the railroad tracks,
Yeah.
and it has been a challenge for decades.
Okay.
And lately, there's been a lot of shenanigans over there. Officer Moody, I would like to report on behalf of one of my neighbors who sent me a text, and then Edie has something to ask. We are having continued problem with drug and activity and vandalism on Tunnel Avenue at Scenic and how it kind of curves around up to Terrace.
Okay.
Are you familiar with that area?
I'm familiar with the area. I didn't know that there were issues over there.
Yeah, there's a lot of drug dealing going over there, or
Okay.
what appears that has every sign of being drug dealing. And one of the neighbors had her tires slashed the other night.
Okay.
And that same neighbor has been putting up solar lighting because there's a dangerous stairwell over there that's on city property. And that lighting is smashed. The neighbors suspect that it is the people in the cars who might be trying to bring the lighting down, but that's anecdotal. It could just be some hostile person or someone that's not well. So still a hot spot. I just
Okay.
wanted to point that out.
Do you
Edie?
know if there's any vehicles associated with them that we can identify or try
Yeah,
to?
I'll get back, not specifically on this incident. I'll get
Okay.
back to you. That's Paige Tauscher, and I know she's reported some stuff before, so
Okay.
I feel
Thanks.
sorry for her, though. They know she has cameras and they seem to be taking a lot of vandalism out on her property.
Okay, we will take care of that.
Thanks. Edie?
I read in I believe it was either the Chronicle or San Francisco, the SF Gate, that there was a major bust of something like 700 catalytic converters and a ton of copper wire that at a metal place down on Richmond Parkway in that area. Do you have any information on that? And have you seen any change in the amount of either of those kinds of thefts happening since that bust?
So no, we weren't actually involved in that bust, and I was actually not familiar with that one. I know Cadillac converter thefts are still, a hot topic, and wire theft is still running rampant. We have had, I'd say, probably 6 to 7 arrests in the last 45 days for copper theft related incidents. I don't know if you actually saw that there was a subject that was in one of those crawl spaces in a manhole and actually electrocuted himself trying to steal copper wire over off of South 2nd Street. Did you happen to see that in Cutting? So that it's very dangerous. So people taking wires that are hot and active, it's something that they probably shouldn't do. And it's something that is detrimental to possibly their lives. They could possibly get electrocuted, and that actually happens. So I know we are in the process. Our public information officers are putting information out there as far as copper wire theft that's going out within our city for people to actually pay attention. If they see something suspicious, to contact us, and then we're going to address it. Thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars of copper theft is occurring, every day. It's running rampant. It's pretty bad. So we are definitely
lighting's
addressing it.
been out on Canal
Yeah.
for years,
it's-
and then they finally get it up. And I remember the first year I was president, a couple of years ago, they hit railroad 3 times in 6 months. So would they put it up and down again? I just wanted to ask, you may not know this, and I'll try to get some photos. There was what looks like the size almost of a swimming pool noodle. This sort of conduit, several
Mhm.
layers of plastic split open, and that was dumped in the Janus playground, and also large quantities of it up on Terrace. Does that sound like it could be copper wire stuff?
That's absolutely copper wire theft. Yep, they're
Okay.
cutting them down for the poles, and they're bringing it down, and then they'll slice off the conduit and take the copper wires and go into different recycling centers and get money for them.
Right. So presumably that is happening up on Terrace because
Yes. Okay.
the actual stripping or this, I don't know why anyone would drive to Terrace to dump a ton of this stuff in someone's backyard. So
Sure.
either it was happening up in the hills and they just dumped it there, or
Okay.
it's likely that it happened on Terrace. If it's useful, this is a couple weeks. If it's useful, I'll try to get that neighbor to take some photos and report, but I don't know no one saw anything, so.
Okay, well, that's okay.
She
We
just was
still-
wondering what the stuff was, and it was in the playground, and I was wondering, if it's still in the
Okay.
play.
Yeah,
All right, thanks.
we'll take the photos and any information helps.
Great. Lisa?
Yeah.
Hi, I have a question. I don't want to reveal too much information because I'm not sure how much has been released yet. There was an incident that happened in Brickyard Cove on Sandpiper Spit last Friday morning. Are you aware of that? And if so, are there any updates to the public?
Can you give me a little bit of information so I can maybe?
I know you guys were looking for a specific vehicle and cameras in the area, and I was trying to help provide locations for those cameras.
Do you know what day it was?
The event allegedly happened Friday morning.
Okay.
I'm aware of that. I don't want to say too much because I'm not sure how much has been revealed publicly. So, but it's a pretty concerning case if it.
I don't have any details on that right now. I can talk to you offline if you'd like
Yeah, that would be.
and give you an update. I'll just have to look up the case. I work Monday through Thursday, and I would just have to research it a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. I have the detective's information. If you can give me a call, I'll
Sure.
put my number in the chat for you.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. David, did you have a question?
Yeah, well, a comment, a question. I am, David Cole. I'm, been involved in starting a neighborhood watch group on East Richmond Avenue and that area. And suddenly become aware of all kinds of incidents that, just I had not heard of before. But the most concerning one actually involved my neighbor on East Richmond, and I know there was a call for service there. She was a prowler in her yard, looking in her window and then, trying to enter her backyard through different gates. She flipped on the porch light and the fellow fled. But we've had a lot of traffic back and forth up and down the street of people who the people who camp along the freeway and in the homeless people basically and they come into Point Richmond down East Richmond Avenue, and they're just going back and forth a lot during the day and casing houses, and it's become a real cause for concern.
But sure you're here.
Oh, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay,
now-
excellent. I'm sorry, my car computer isn't working. I had to download the program to my cell phone.
Welcome, Officer Zidane.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'm sorry about this.
But yes, I understand your concerns with the homelessness and kind of just roaming around everywhere. We are actually working with Michelle Milam, CORE, and other resources to try to either abate them or get them the resources they need. It's a constant work in progress.
Yeah.
Michelle Milam is exceptional at dealing with the things that she's dealing with. We've abated multiple encampments in the last couple months, and we are continuing our efforts. But if you ever see any suspicious activity, please give us a phone call, especially somebody prowling, trying to get into your backyard. We'll definitely respond. That's a priority call.
Great, yeah, because as I say, since I've been involved with the Neighborhood Watch, suddenly I'm hearing all kinds of stories that I was totally unaware of. And in this case, the one I mentioned, she did phone the police and they
Okay.
got out there, but it was after the person had left.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
you will be hearing from us more regularly.
Okay.
David,
No worries. That's what we're here for.
I hooked up somebody from the very end of East Richmond down by Wareham at the very end. We call it
Yeah.
Frogtown, for those of you who are new.
Yeah,
And she's got encampments up on the cliff up by the sewage treatment
Oh,
plant.
that's where they are.
So,
Oh.
what, I don't, anyway, there's a complicated reason that this is happening. But I don't feel comfortable discussing it
I
now, but
understand, yeah,
there is, and I'll talk to you offline about it.
Yeah.
There are encampments up there and it's causing trouble. And there's a lot of those vans and campers that had been moved along, as you know, down at the end of East Richmond are back again,
Oh,
with
yeah,
folks living in
that
it. So,
too. Yeah,
yeah. Anna? Anna? We lost Anna.
Sorry, I'm here. I was muted. Apologies.
Ah.
To piggyback off of what you said, what I was also going to mention is I've also noticed a proliferation of the camper vans, the sleeper vans along Dornan by the water, especially down near the bathrooms, further down from Killer Beach. And so where I used to maybe when we walk, maybe we saw one every once in a while. Now I'm seeing 3, 4, 5. And I'm assuming Officer Moody, we would call because that's a public, that's not East Bay Regional Park to be called because that's a public street. Is there a 72-hour? So if somebody's parked there and we call, someone can post something on the van to say they have 72 hours?
Yes, that's the process. We have our parking enforcement and/or an officer go over there and red tag the vehicle and give them 72 hours to move out of the location that they're at.
And then if they're gone for a day, can they come back and say another 72 hours?
That's where it gets a little bit tricky.
Okay.
Officers, Idana, I think you're aware of those campers down on Dornan. What type of enforcement have you done in that general area, if you don't mind talking about it?
As far as I know, I've spoken to a couple of them and they said, there's what we have to do is we have to offer them services first. If they accept the services, then they give them a little more leeway to give them an opportunity to get housed, find them beds, because this is the process that we have to follow. You contact people, you offer them services, you send their information to Masham Alam of the PD. She gets a hold of CORE and SOS. Then they get a hold of them and they offer them services. That's if they agree. And sometimes that takes actually a little bit long, depending on how much time they have, how much people they have, and how many people they have to talk to. If they refuse services, we ask them to leave. If they don't leave, we'll tag their car, and then we 3 days later, then they come back and then we tow that car if it doesn't move. Like Sergeant Moody mentioned a second ago, it gets a little tricky if they move the car or the trailer, a half a mile down the road, and then they have moved it. Now we have to start the process all over again. So that's why sometimes we have to, our best bet is to get them placed someplace rather than have them keep bouncing from one corner to another and taking advantage of our, laws on the books.
Thank you. I'm just anticipating, given the proximity to the shoreline, the toilets that are there, the parking, it is going to get worse and worse. So we're going to drive down Dornan and have a whole road, just like was near Costco, of these camper vans.
Correct.
So
I share your concerns too, ma'am. But just like anything in law enforcement, we have a process that we have to follow. Sometimes the process is quick and easy. Sometimes a little bit more challenging, depending on the circumstances that we face. But rest assured, we're always trying to solve these problems. I just actually tagged the car in West County across from 530 West Canal. There's a trailer with a Suburban. I couldn't get anyone there, so I couldn't offer anyone services, so I tagged it. So they got 3 days. If they don't, I work on the weekends, put on my plans to go and tow it. But sometimes the challenge is some of these trailers are really big. And it's really hard sometimes to have a towing company that has the equipment that are able to tow these things. And we've had these challenges in the past. But Oliver's Tow has a big rig that actually tows these things. And I've had them come out and tow all of these things in the past. But sometimes they're not available. They get used by CHP all the time for big rigs and stuff like that. So it depends. There's sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. But if I got a minute, I'd like to piggyback on some of the stuff that Sergeant Movie discussed. earlier today. Uh, yeah, I don't know if you know, there's a Mr. Grant. They used to live at 3 West Richmond, and he was evicted, and then he was kind of terrorizing the whole neighborhood for a while. So maybe Sergeant Moody killed me with the date. About 3 weeks, a month ago. About a month ago, he broke into a house. He fled, and we got him. He's still in custody, and he got arrested for residential burglary. And on Monday, I go to his court, so he's gonna do some time. So that's why we haven't had any complaints about him. So he's in jail, and
Officer
hopefully when
Zeidman,
we go to court. I'm sorry?
was he a relatively young guy, slender, frequently on a bike?
Negative. No, he normally drives the white Toyota Camry. He's maybe like 44, 45, 50 years old, young black gentleman, maybe about 5'5", 660 pounds. Yeah. Yeah, that's why I haven't seen him for a while. He's in custody right now, when he broke into that house.
Thank you, officer.
Another thing is thank you. And another thing, Sergeant Moody and you mentioned the sideshows. I arrested a young man, what, last weekend, I think. I interviewed him doing spinning donuts, spinning circles in the street in between. So I arrested him for reckless driving, and we towed his car for 30 days. So that's not gonna, I guarantee he's not gonna do that again in the city of Richmond.
Thank you, officer.
Thank you. And it's a challenge sometimes, catching these people because we have to on-view them or have somebody else say that person was doing this, so we're able to take action. Other than that, we can't. It's really challenging to pinpoint or prove that this person was doing the donuts or doing the reckless driving.
Thank you. And let's finish up with Edie before we let the officers go for the evening and meet Dr. Lynch. Edie, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a very, very quick one. Regarding the process of dealing with the camper vans, is that a process that is prescribed by state law, or is it Richmond law that is making those specific steps?
Well, in the past, it was actually a case law. It was a federal law out of, I want to say, Utah, if I'm not mistaken. And that mandated that in order for us to force anybody to leave, because they said being homeless is not a crime. In
Right.
order for us to force someone to leave from a specific area in public, there's different public and there's private. Private is easy, but the public one is the more challenging. You have to have open beds and at a shelter to be able to accommodate them. If they're not, there's no open beds, then we cannot force them. But that law went to the Supreme Court and was overturned. And that's why now we're able to red tag the cars for the people that actually refuse to get any services. But some of the stuff is from the city of Richmond. They're trying to help people, instead of just have them go from one location to another in the city, just take care of it right then and there, and give them services. And believe me, Michelle Milam has been working very hard, and we've placed many, many, many people. The homelessness population in Richmond has actually gotten a lot better.
That's great. Yeah, she's wonderful. Thanks.
Thank
That
you.
was a great question, Edie. Officers, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. We're going to let you go about your beat or go home and put your feet up. We hope to see you next month, and keep up the good work. You have our support.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
very
Have a
much.
great
Have a
evening.
good night.
Yeah, have a good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, now our guest tonight is Dr. Kirby Lynch. She's following up on her associate who came last month to ask to talk a little bit more about this Chevron communication funding and to ask some specific questions. Dr. Lynch, I do have to apologize for running a few minutes late, but we do have a couple very quick orders of business that we have to do. And we never rush the police along because we want the community to be able to express their concerns. President's report, I'll keep super short because we're going to use that time to make two very simple votes. I just wanted to thank the PTA and all of the community members and vendors and restaurants that participated in the PTA event last Friday. It was spectacular. lots of music, lots of good food, lots of vendors, and lots of opportunity to talk to the neighbors at the PRNC tent. And I know that Layla was there helping to move beverages from the tent into people's hands. So I just wanted to compliment them on that. The other thing I want to mention, we've sent it out, we'll send it out again. And for those of you who have unique addresses in Point Richmond, meaning you don't live in an apartment number that has number ABC apartment A, you probably already received those purple postcards, didn't realize they were dumpster day and threw them away. So we do have a dumpster day. Uh-oh, now I forgot. Is it Saturday? Anybody remember?
Saturday,
So-
October 12th.
Saturday, October 12th, noon, from 8 o'clock in the morning until noon, or the dumpsters fill up. Same routine, line up on Cutting, make a right-hand turn in front of the elementary school. This year, we have a new and exciting feature, and I know you're going to love it. We're going to send some PRNC officers, those of us who are a little more chatty, probably Ann and I, with a bucket. It is an absolutely free event, but if you are so inclined, we will be asking if you might want to throw a couple bucks in for donations. We've got a lot of projects on the board, and the money that we used to get from the recycling is currently in a black hole. So we're going to ask, but please feel free to smile and say, "Oh, Phil." It work that way. So I just wanted to mention that. We're going to get right into two votes. The first vote we have is we took a look at our bylaws, and we would like to refresh the bylaws by allowing there to be additional at-large officers. So the regular officers' positions will remain the same, but people like Charmaine and Peter, we can add. We do have some folks in our community with very unique skills who have been offering to help, and we need the help because that's that extra set of hands that the board needs. So the only real refresh to the bylaws is we are voting for the general membership to allow us to change the bylaws so that we can add 2 more officers at large. So Edie's going to throw that up on the screen, and we can just vote on our screens. Remember, if you are, everyone's willing to attend, but if you're not an active member, we're going to have to go through and sort that vote out anyway. Edie,
Right.
do you?
And I do want to ask that if you are not a paid and current member of Point Richmond Neighborhood Council, please do not vote, because that just makes my job a little bit easier going through it. This is a vote for only paid and active full members of Point Richmond Neighborhood Council who have paid their dues for the year.
Right, or if your dues have been raised.
Or the dues have been raised. All right, stand by. Here is your vote.
So much better than the old system of us trying to count
Joe
hands.
Paleo is asking how many at-large members are currently permitted.
We have 2, and we'd like to have up to 4. It is optional to have any at all.
All right, so I'm gonna give it a couple of more seconds. We are closing the vote in 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are closing the vote now. Here are your results.
Okie doke. So we will make those changes to the bylaws and begin to
Assuming
recruit.
assuming that they are all members, paid members,
Right.
yes.
Well, I can't imagine, since there were no negative votes, that it's going to be a problem no matter what.
Good point.
So we'll be adjusting that number in the bylaws and continuing to recruit community members who want to help. And volunteers are always helpful. So don't forget, even if you just help us set up a tent on a festival day, or there's a million little volunteer positions that you can use. We're looking for somebody who likes to be on social media, who can help us to, just post things that are going on in the neighborhood. The second vote is a little bit more confusing. It is a little more complex, and I will tell you that I do not know all of the details about this. But I had a conversation with Michelle Milan about the encampments under the freeway. And she explained to me that there are grants from the state called ERF2 funding. And these are the grants that allow Caltrans, and they can be millions, allow Caltrans to get better housing and better services for people who are living on Caltrans property. And this is particularly important to those of us who are aware that we've really got challenges on Tewksbury at Railroad. That encampment is really big right now. So if you want to abstain, if we don't get a vote on this, I don't really have the information. We would have to invite somebody to come and explain the program more in more depth. But what I know is Michelle said there may be funding there, and she thinks the neighborhood council should ask the city council to see if they can get some of that funding. So I threw it on for a vote. I don't see a downside on it. And if it doesn't work, then we can have somebody to come out to discuss the program in more detail. But bottom line is there may be money available for our direct freeway if that is considered an encampment. So I just want to throw a vote to request the ERF2 funding, or that request that the city inquire about ERF2 funding for the homeless encampments or unhoused encampments under the freeway. So Michelle told me it was a good idea, so I'm putting it up to vote. Edie?
All right. So once again, this is a vote to request the city council request information about the ERF2 funding. We are launching, and again, this is a vote only for paid and current members of the PRNC. And here is your vote. All right. I will give 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Closing the poll now. Here are your results.
Okay, so we'll send that letter, and I will get somebody to talk about these grants in the near future. Thank you, community. We're going to have we're going to touch on a couple of quick 1 minute, or actually it's just Eric that's going to present today, and then we'll get on. Thank you very much for your patience, Dr. Lynch. I think that Eric is giving membership and treasurer's report today.
Yeah, thank you. This will be quick as usual. So as far as membership, we have 2 new members since the last time we met a month ago. So welcome if you're joining us tonight. So that takes us to 186 paid and active members with the PRNC. As far as the treasurer report, sorry, reading my notes here. Between the bank accounts, we have $19,673.07. There is $6,100 of that, which is restricted, and that's earmarked for the tunnel project as well as the tree fund. So the total available funds in our accounts are $13,573.07. So
Thank you
you.
very much. That was precise. And I want to thank Edie again. I think that we've increased our email list by at least 10% in the last few months due to Edie's efforts and making it easier to do so. So those are not all active members, but at least we are reaching out to more of the community. Now, thank you. I know we're running 10 minutes late, Dr. Lynch. Following on last month's presentation, I would like to introduce Dr. Kirby Lynch from Sears Policy Research. And I would like to just ask you not only to introduce yourself and your background in Richmond, but also to differentiate the reason you're here today from the other various grants, which is the number one question I know you're getting. Welcome,
Oh,
Dr.
yes.
Lynch.
Well, first, thank you so much, Philip, for the invite to just connect with you all this evening. It's a pleasure. Sorry. Yeah, so again, I met Philip through this process currently and serving as the consultant social science researcher to support the community action plan, which is one of the legally mandated requirements of the new settlement agreement that Chevron has with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District related to Rule 65 settlement. And yeah, really, I'm just here to really convey to you all the opportunity in front of us and really just relationship build with you all, because I believe that Point Richmond is one of the most impacted communities by Chevron refinery operations, and really want to use this process strategically to put y'all voice a part of, again, a legally mandated process that's never been done in the state of California or in this particular agency's history, where this agency is requiring the Chevron do some community planning and actually follow that plan. And if they don't, there'll be some fines and fees associated with that. And I'm here just to follow up from our August conversation where my colleague Aisha Canfield came and presented, just trying to, again, relationship build with you all. Because just to be clear, there's a lot going on with Chevron right now, right? We got the City of Richmond settlement with the 550 million. Did anybody go to the city hall meeting last night? Anybody? Yeah, that was like a crazy conversation, right? So that's its own thing, right? With the polluters tax and, them making that offering to the city of Richmond, right? So we're going to have to monitor the usage of that money. But then again, like I'm saying, a part of this settlement agreement related to Rule 65, which is really a byproduct of the November 2023 flaring event. Was everybody around for that? Back in November when it was flaring and it was all smoked up and right, and there was really no communication. So that is the core of why we have the Rule 65 settlement agreement that was completed in February 2024, was to address, again, the operations related to flaring at the refinery, but then also their lack of communication with the community. So what I'll basically be presenting for you all today is really one aspect of that settlement agreement, which is related to the community action plan, right? Which is supposed to set the standard and the mechanism to communicate with community when these flaring events happen. But also, just to be clear, there still is a $25 million community health fund that the Bay Area Air Quality Management District has, a part of the settlement agreement that we're not particularly responsible for or facilitating, but it's still a very important aspect of this moment. And I really do see Point Richmond as a body to really push for community accountability at the city of Richmond for that 550 million, at the Bay Area Air Quality Management District for the 25 million. And most importantly, with this community action plan that Chevron has to adhere to, which is to increase two-way dialogue between Chevron and the community. So just wanted to quickly kind of share the work that we've done. I have about a 10-minute presentation just so I can give y'all a little sneak peek into the work that we're doing as researchers to take community voice and convert it into this plan. But most importantly, I want y'all to save the date for October 16th, 2024, which is a town hall that, again, is legally mandated by the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. And I want you all to attend because that will be where Chevron will be presenting a lot of their flare minimization efforts. In addition to, we will be presenting the draft community action plan that we've been working on in collaboration with community. And you all will have an opportunity to give public comment, right, that eventually Chevron will have to respond to. So I just wanted to walk y'all through all of these various processes. But if y'all move as a unit in this process, I really feel like it could trickle down into, again, the work that needs to be done at the City of Richmond and the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. But before I get into my presentation, I just want to make sure, are there any kind of like high level questions or comments about anything I just said or any follow-up from the presentation last month? So I can try to address them in my presentation.
So I would like to clarify, because I was part of this CAP meeting. Thank you for including the neighborhood councils in the affected area. What we're really mostly focusing on today will be the communications between Chevron and the community. So there's a lot to unpack there. And so I want to let Dr. Lynch make her presentation so that, and I did speak, the neighborhood councils had a lot to say on behalf of their neighbors, and a lot of people have made suggestions. I took all suggestions for communication to Dr. Lynch's presentation, and they were recorded. But this will be after Dr. Lynch's presentation. You'll have a chance, if there's some type of communication that's missing, that somehow the neighborhood councils and other organizations that were at this meeting missed, throw them out there. You know, if you want a skywriter, well, that would be counterproductive. Throw it out there. You know, if you want to door-to-door something, throw it out there.
Oh yes, thank you so much. And then I see Miss Sally and then Mr. Eric after that.
Okay, thank you very much for being here. This is really wonderful. And one of the things that I'm concerned about, that I have tried several avenues to connect with Chevron about, is that there are rumors that the refinery facility and their surrounding area are massively contaminated. And when you look at those sea level maps online, it looks as if about half of the refinery is flooded with a sea level rise of just 1 foot. And so I would really appreciate very much if Chevron could talk about what their plans are for sea level rise.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then yes, Eric, how you doing?
I'm well. Thank you for joining us this evening. I appreciate it. I asked a question to your colleague last month when during the presentation, and it was about, I haven't really dug into the, I've just kind of heard bits and pieces of what's going on about the money in the program and kind of starting this engagement process. But one of the questions I asked last month was in regards to, can any of this money be used or put back into Chevron to cap emission sources at the source?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so I don't know if we're far along enough yet in the process, or if you have some thoughts on that, or if there's anything in your presentation, but was just curious because I'm in my opinion, I mean, capping at the source is probably one of the best avenues here to, best protect the community who lives around the refinery.
Mm-hmm.
So.
No, and you're absolutely correct that is the actual solution here. And I'm here to really just build solidarity with y'all and to build some trust with y'all that there has to be a strategic framing of what we're asking of Chevron, right? And really going to go over the different levers at our access right now, so y'all can use it, right? So a question like that, right? Are they going to use money to cap emissions, right? Chevron will politically say that's not within the scope of this work, right? And they'll verbalize it, right? And so I'll go over what the settlement's about, but why asking these questions about that and asking these questions about sea level rise is that Chevron will have to, again, with the settlement agreement, respond to these ideas written, document that, and file it with the Bay Area Management Quality District. And that becomes the mechanism for accountability, right? For you to propose those ideas and start kind of do some progress monitoring on where they are with that, because I can't confidently tell you that they're even working on that, right? So I'll go over what my scope of work is, but those type of suggestions and questions are what needs to come up at this town hall on the 16th.
Thank you, Dr. Lynch. Excuse me one moment. Edie, can you let Lisa back in? She dropped out of the meeting. And let's go ahead and see your presentation, because I think that will clarify a lot of where
Yeah.
this money's going.
Yes, but to be very clear, y'all, there's different processes going on, and I'm really excited about the opportunity. But again, Point Richmond, 186 members, y'all are a huge block to really move this forward and really demand community accountability throughout all of these processes, right? So I'll share my screen. Let's see. Cool. Can you see the red? All right, thank you all so much. So again, I'm giving you some exclusive sneak peek access to the preliminary community action plan. And again, just want y'all's high level feedback about the plan so we can revise it. We're revising and updating this plan every day, week by week. I'm doing presentations with other groups. And so everything that you say tonight, I'm going to listen to and integrate it. So again, about me, my name is Dr. Kirby Lynch. I'm a part of an organization called Series Policy Research. I serve as our Director of Research and Facilitation. What that really means is that I'm responsible for doing all the research design for all of our inquiries. You may know me from around. I was the project management consultant for the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice process in Contra Costa. Currently also am the consultant establishing the African American Wellness Hub doing their feasibility study. And then you may know me as a commissioner. I'm a commissioner here in the city of Richmond, representing Hilltop on the Economic Development Commission, and I am currently the cannabis chair. So, really, I see myself as a researcher trying to be the middle person between community, doing the research to back it up with data and analysis to basically push these people to do a lot more than what they're doing. I don't always believe that people are doing the best that they can do. So we consider ourselves a space, a trusted space for community solutions. We take seriously what we hear in these meetings and we try to operationalize it and try to understand the best practices to really affirm what community is saying. So again, if you have your phone real quick, you can actually use this QR code to actually see the 35-page settlement agreement for Rule 65. But this is, again, what's kind of guiding my work and what's guiding this moment, which is separate than the 550 million and the polluters tax work. But it's actually the source of where this $25 million community health fund is going. But in addition, you have to read this 35-page document because there's a lot of promises on, again, the technology Chevron has to invest in to reduce flaring at the refinery. So it's really about flaring minimization, which in turn is reducing emissions, which is in turn improving quality of life. So really reading it and holding all entities accountable, primarily the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, that they stay true to the intentions of this settlement. So if you may not know, I'll go quickly through it, why the settlement happened. Chevron's refinery in Richmond was causing pollution that was harmful to the community. This is particularly in reference to the November 2023 flaring incident. And so the Bay Area Air Quality Management District took action because of the negative impact of those emissions on the local air quality. So what basically happened in November, there was just a power outage at the facility, and then therefore that's really what caused the incident to get to those dangerous levels where the refinery couldn't respond in an effective way. And they say that these rarely happens, but it just goes to show why we need these agreements so that all of the technology is up to date. And so what does the settlement mean? Chevron agreed to reduce harmful emissions moving forward, especially particulate matter from the refinery, which again can affect breathing and overall health. They are required to improve how they handle pollution to protect the community. All right, as a part of the settlement, Chevron will install better equipment to reduce emissions and provide funding to support local air quality improvement projects. This includes a $20 million community air quality fund to help reduce pollution from other sources in Richmond. Okay, so there's kind of two things happening here. Chevron, again, is installing better equipment to reduce emissions. So your question, believe Eric, that's really in their scope. And that's why when they give a presentation on October 16th about what they're doing to reduce emissions, I hope you follow up with that question. And then the second part is, again, supporting local air quality improvement projects. And so I hope, again, that y'all are advocating as Point Richmond in this process, which has not been defined by the Bay Area Air Quality Management District yet. However, it's still so early in the process that your voice right now on how that money is distributed, on the criteria for its distribution, really, there's no time better than right now, right? And, you know, Supervisor Joya is basically in the middle of that process. So again, hound him. And so again, the settlement also gives the Richmond community a chance to get involved by attending public meetings, staying informed about Chevron's progress, and providing input on how they can be held accountable. All right, so that's the community's role. This settlement agreement actually provides, again, a legal mechanism that Chevron has to report at the minimum 2 times a year out to the community about their progress in reducing emissions in the community based on flaring narrowly, right? So we're not getting yet into the full scope of refinery operations, but flaring is a huge, huge part of it already. So the community action plan, what is it? You know, I keep talking about it. And so basically, it was just supposed to be a document to help Chevron engage the community. However, Serious Policy Research, we wanted to take it a little step further. You know, they just kind of wanted our firm to write up a report. However, we were like, no, we want to have an actual committee of people. And we decided that we wanted a committee of people that were from the most impacted neighborhoods. So, you know, Point Richmond, Atchison Village came to the top of our mind. We're working with the Iron Triangle, Shields Reed, all of these different impacted neighborhoods to inform this plan, plus environmental justice groups who have been in Richmond for the longest. Some declined our invitation to participate and some showed up really ready to do the work. But really, this group of people have been really helping guide us in our thinking and our completion of the plan. But I'm just going to explain from the settlement agreement what, at the bare minimum, this community action plan is supposed to do. This community action plan is supposed to be, again, a public external conversation that Chevron is having with the community. We're supporting Chevron with their first town hall because they typically do community engagement, right? But again, this is something I want y'all to have on the horizon as an institution and an opportunity for you all to, you know, to keep showing up to these meetings and voicing your concerns. So again, legally, these meetings have to be at least 2 hours long, right? These town halls, they have to be held twice a year. And then at those meetings, Chevron will be providing information and answering questions on flaring events and notices of violation, right? So this is the core of the community meetings. At those community meetings, Chevron is required to take public comment at each of those meetings. Chevron legally is supposed to respond orally to these comments where possible during the meeting. And then after, prepare written summary of comments, responses, and related discussions after the meeting. So if they can't respond orally to the comments, they again will have to provide a written explanation for why they couldn't do it, right? So I want y'all to come use that public comment period to get these concerns out there. Afterwards, Chevron must explore relevant community suggestions from the meeting. That's why that written summary of commentary is important. They have to provide an oral report on these suggestions at the next meeting and then publish a written summary on the public website that will be guided. It's going to be on the Chevron website, but it's going to be actually double checked by the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. So there will be oversight from the district to make sure that they're adhering to all these things. Again, Chevron must provide written updates on the implementation of the plan at least once every 12 months. So again, the plan, strategically, we're trying to use this to be a document where we're requesting and asking for what we want from Chevron in terms of communications, right? And really making sure that plan is strong at the start so that for the next 12 months, they don't have any excuse to why they haven't implemented all of these great ideas, right? After they're providing a written update, they have to submit those updates to the Air District. And then finally, or not finally, but a really cool part is that they actually have to show that this community action plan is required by the settlement agreement with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District at the front of the page. So it's not like Chevron can misappropriate and act like, oh, this is something that we want to do for ourselves. Everyone must know that whatever comes out of this plan is a byproduct of this moment. All right. So again, Within 9 months of the agreement's effective date, which was again February, Chevron must fund and begin implementing the plan, including holding the first community meeting. So when we're talking about funding for communications, we got to make sure the plan is strong enough so that Chevron operationally has to fund these ideas. All right. Again, the actual plan is due October 31st. So that's around the time that you'll be seeing it be publicly available. So, time is ticking. So whatever suggestions you have tonight, or even if you field them to Philip, it's going to be important to get them in, right? And so expiration, these requirements expire 5 years from the date Chevron begins implementing the community action plan. So the incentive for them to do and implement the plan is really only within the first 5 years. And so what we struggle with in this process is making things feasible for them. And I'm not going to act like it's really been easy working with Chevron, We have met 2 times. We had an all-day retreat on August 19th, where again, neighborhood council leadership, community-based organization leadership, we had over like an 8-hour conversation about, our history working with Chevron, how we feel Chevron has really failed to communicate with community effectively. And so in these meetings, from all over, we gave suggestions. And I would say, at the first round, I went back and I was like, okay, Chevron, what are you committing to? And there was some pushback, I'm just going to be transparent. And so that's why on October 16th, 2024, if you can show up and double down on a lot of these suggestions, it's just going to really affirm that it's not just Kirby coming up with these ideas, but this is again what the community wants. And so I'll get into some of the general categories, but in the Q&A, if you want me to expound on some, just let me know. But the main ideas that were coming from the community about what they want to see is like community engagement. Okay, so the depth of community engagement. So regular biannual meetings is what the community wants to update on emissions and take public comments. People also want the community to help guide the CAP progress. And so just to be transparent, my work with Chevron is done after the completion of this report, so there's no real facilitator of this work. And so that's where the community comes in, that we want to make a strong recommendation that y'all are involved in the implementation and the real guiding of the progress beyond just meeting twice a year, right? And so a community person said the CAP needs to be involved in community meetings, town halls, etc. People want to make this CAP be a document that reflects the real needs of the community. So people are really relying on this CAP to do the work. Another area of the CAP is around real-time data transparency. So the goal is that Chevron will improve real-time data reporting on emissions, including mobile alerts, community-controlled monitoring, and simplified public access. A huge conversation point in our meetings was that people just don't really understand what's happening. When I talk about all these investments that Chevron's making in reducing emissions, nobody really knows. So a huge recommendation that came was to publish/market to the community improvements made or in the works, just so we actually have an understanding of what's being done. Additionally, community wanted environmental health monitoring, right? We really need to have Chevron be transparent about the health impacts on emissions, including asthma, allergies, and respiratory issues. And additionally, support local health assessments, right? One community said asthma, COPD, and allergies were frequently mentioned. So many people had said that they struggled with these issues themselves. And then finally, community oversight. So, which is very triggering language for Chevron, oversight. They're like, why oversight, right? But at the core, it's about the creation of a third-party independent committee to oversee Chevron's progress on the CAP, right? Ensuring that there's transparency and accountability in decision-making. So community said, we need to form a community oversight community. This group should be independent and free from Chevron's control, right? So not being paid by Chevron, not official staff of Chevron. And again, we believe, we're going to write this plan, but who becomes the body that actually follows to make sure it's actually done? So Philip was a part of these conversations. Other people were a part of conversations. So we hope these people are the core of who can be that kind of third party independent committee. But again, that was a strong suggestion. Feedback mechanisms. The CAP will establish clear feedback loops, allowing for community input to shape Chevron's actions, okay? So again, Chevron should commit to reporting on CAP outcomes regularly and transparently. This is what we're hearing from the community. They want to have this, again, two-way dialogue. So again, doubling down on that. Flare incident response was another huge category that came up. People wanted mobile alerts and simplified communication methods that will be used during flare incidents to ensure community awareness and proper safety measures. Someone suggested like something like an Amber Alert via cell phones or social media alerts. And I know that it seems basic, like to say these things and like common sense, but we have to really say these things out loud in this process on public comment through this plan, so Chevron can start operationalizing these things. You would be really amazed how controversial some of these concepts were. One, there are sometimes excuses that there's a county system, the community warning system, right? There's already a system. But what the community is saying is that those systems aren't accessible. And yeah, we can do a lot of community engagement to improve those systems, but at the core, what can Chevron be responsible for? And the most important thing that came out of our community engagement was around data transparency and reporting. So we hope that Chevron will improve how it shares emissions data, ensuring that reports are understandable to the general public, including graphical representations of data. A community member suggested that we show graphics of reduction in flaring over time, right? And so this is just a quick example of some of the areas and themes that are coming out of our deep engagement with community, just to improve communications, right? Around accessibility, just having them do more. I remember for the November 2023 flaring event, all they really did was post on Facebook that it was happening. And, I said, that's it, and it's like, yeah, that's our process. And it's like, no, we need to really help them come up with better protocols and processes for communicating. So how the neighborhood council can contribute, your feedback is essential, right? Because y'all needs and priorities of being Point Richmond residents really need to be taken seriously. We see this as the preliminary plan. So what we're going to present on the 16th is a draft of really all of these conversations with other of the core committee, right? But you're part of this plan. So your input will make sure the CAP actually addresses the concerns in terms of pollution transparency with the health impacts and really help define Chevron's role in the community. By participating, you help create a plan that really directly tackles the issues, right? So I just wanted to give you the affirmation that the CAP will continue to evolve based on yours involvement. Like I said, they have to update on the plan every 12 months, do these public comments, do biannual meetings, and these are your opportunities. So I hope that you can make it out on this Wednesday or October 16th from 6 to 8 p.m. at COBIZ Richmond. And basically, like I said, Chevron will give an update on their commitments and progress with emissions reduction. We'll go over a draft community plan, and then we'll have some activities for you to kind of give your concrete feedback, because again, this is all being documented and having to be submitted to the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. And none of these people should say that they don't know what the community wants, because we can't keep being surveyed and surveyed and surveyed and no one hears us. And so hopefully through this legislative process and this legal process that we say it one time and one time only, and they start operationalizing it. So again, thank you all for just allowing me to be in your meeting. And I really do want to build a relationship with you all to make sure that this plan actually works. Because like I said, learning about the November 2023 flaring incident and really the lack of protocol to let the community know was really alarming and concerning. And so I know communications may seem like a really low level thing, but it is concerning that the protocols aren't there. So just thank you for your time. And I'm really here with y'all for the rest of the time to kind of field any other comments or concerns you have. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lynch. And we will be sending that flyer out. I see we have some questions or comments. We'll be sending that flyer out, and Dr. Lynch and I decided it's likely to go out maybe a week before the event, or we can send it out twice, but we know that when we send things out too soon, people forget them. So I would encourage all of you to be there. And I see that Gary has a question. You're muted, Gary.
Thank you. Now, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so the question is on communications, Facebook doesn't do it for sure. Was Nixle looked at as a way to communicate? So you really have a very broad way to get communication out?
Yeah, so Nixle did come up in the community conversations we had. So I have long notes about these suggestions, but yeah, Nixle was suggested.
Yeah, okay.
So you like Nixle, okay?
Dr. Lynch, can I do a 5-second punch out of some of the things that I heard? Because it may be repetitive.
Yes, of course.
We heard about Nixle. We heard about the possibility of having direct text communication that you can sign up for. We talked about Chevron's line having a recorded message for those who are not tech savvy and might not even have a cell phone or a computer, so that when they call, instead of getting an operator that tells you they'll call back later, which they do, but it could be 2 days later, you could have a recorded message that would fill you in. Chevron liked that idea because then people can hear what's happening and they don't have to staff those phone lines. So those were some of the immediate communications methods, as well as an increase in social media presence. But the best response seemed to be things that went directly to people, because then you don't have to do anything. You don't have to go on Nextdoor and search for a thread, or Facebook and search for a thread. So those are a few of the things that I heard that I wanted to mention. And I'm particularly interested in the people who are not on social media and maybe don't have a cell phone or not tech savvy. So that was a couple of things that I heard at Dr. Lynch's meeting.
Thank you.
Any other? Oh, Lisa, are you in the meeting? I think Lisa is texting me. I think that there's a challenge, so I'm going to read her question. Are
He
you?
is in the meeting.
Oh, Lisa. Yeah, Lisa, we're running really late, but and Lisa's a policy expert of unbelievable knowledge. So I will ask her to put this in layman's terms.
It's just very quick, and you probably address this, Kirby, in your discussions, but I'm just curious, are you guys able to break out emission levels versus exposure levels?
Layman's terms, Lisa?
Emissions versus exposure, very different. What comes up in the air doesn't necessarily come down and you're exposed to it. So, through AB 617, part of the SERP that looked at that broke out exposure level limits on various things and PM 2.5 particulates. And so, there's some very interesting data that came out of that. So I'm just curious, because we are exposed to so many different things, like how is this going to be Chevron versus other industrial components in our immediate neighborhoods? And what comes up doesn't necessarily come down. So how do you distinguish exposure versus emission level limits?
Mm-hmm. And that's a great question for October 16th. So the Chevron staff can respond directly. And it came up in our town halls. Their political answer was they've invested in technology that's significantly reducing the exposure to the surrounding community. That when a flaring event happens, they got this machine that captures all of the emissions and it doesn't impact community at all. That's their political answer. Now, their data collection around
sounds like magic.
Right. Right. But their explanation around exposure, they unfortunately don't track that. So they're only, I don't know if you've seen that air monitoring website, but that's the only data that they're collecting. And then they particularly only have to collect data during a flaring incident, which at that moment is even not a calculation of exposure. It's just emissions coming out. So I think that is a demand and a request from the community that we should advocate for, that there's some data transparency.
Okay, and if you can't attend that meeting, how do you make requests? Should they get submitted to Philip, or what should the process be?
That is a really good question, because it's a new process for everybody. I think the best practice would be to send it to Philip, but I can actually get like a real legal question around that. So what we've been told is that everybody needs to come to the public comment. We've had kind of pushback around virtual hybrid engagement. So I would say politically try to get a representative to come, unfortunately. Or you could write to me. I put my email down, or email, Philip has it as well, and then I will make sure to at least filter it to the Chevron representatives.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
If I can ask a quick question?
sure, Peggy.
First of all, I wanted to say to Dr. Lynch, thank you so much for this. I have not lived in this immediate area for that long. I mean, I've been in the East Bay for quite a while, but it's just kind of ironically not surprising that Chevron had not initiated something like this on its own before. But like I say, should I be surprised? Probably not. So my question, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but again, just to be ironic, because it's been that kind of a day for me, do you have any idea or any sense of who from Chevron is going to be attending?
Oh, yes. So it'll be the whole public affairs team, and then also the flaring specialist team. Now, direct names, I gotta pull that up, but it's basically the scientists and the PR people at the same time. So the scientists will basically be, again, hopefully fielding and giving y'all those direct comments around monitoring and tracking for emissions. So again, please come because the specialists will be there. And then the public affairs specialists will be there, like Hakeem, Brian, Lily, the usual suspects. Yeah, to basically give y'all some affirmation that they're hearing you and what y'all should expect from the public affairs team moving forward. So again, you'll get the engagement from the flaring specialist at Chevron and then also the public affairs team.
Okay, so based on that, because the public affairs team probably is not going to include any of Chevron's in-house counsel. So on the community side, is the community going to have any kind of, let's say, environmental lawyers that are present to kind of keep holding Chevron accountable? And I realize the work that you're doing is actually totally invaluable, but I think there's also kind of a sense like when you say public affairs, those are people who are there to put on the good public front. And then after it's all over and everybody goes home, I realize the air quality management district is going to be watching and overseeing all this, but I'm just wondering, are there any plans to have any other attorneys present to kind of keep those, just so they know, hey, you got attorneys in the room, there's lawyers in the room, they're watching you.
So, the political answer is no. That's what we're here for. It's a really, it's an interesting dynamic, that I must be honest about. But what will be going on is that we're inviting everybody. We're inviting CB, we're inviting APIN, we're inviting everybody, right? So, we had ideas about even having a panel of environmental justice advocates. It was, but we don't want to kind of get too lost in the moment because I think there's just so much going on with Chevron right now that do really want to create a space where it's very clear that we're here to talk about communications and what Chevron really can do better in terms of letting us know what the harms are that are coming our way when an event happens. And so trying to keep it narrow like that, in terms of their legal obligations to do that, that's still not really kind of set, they're only really supposed to respond to a notice of violation. So the legal landscape really doesn't even protect the community in general. And I think that should be also commented on in the public comment period.
Okay.
But
Great.
Bay Management Quality District reps will be there as well.
Okay.
Thanks. Kate has a question.
Again, because this is
Hi,
huge.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. I am most concerned to have someone in the community who has, or along with the rest of the community, who has experience in reading data, who knows what those measurements mean or don't mean, and who can understand their methods and represent our interest to have another truth saying about the methods of taking data and their interpretation of that. And that it is way beyond us, way beyond us. I even have trouble keeping up with South Coast Air Quality Management District, and they're a willing bunch of people to talk to. So I would, I mean, all this information is great, but I would be amongst the crowd to be swayed by whatever is being presented without having in our presence or at least at some part of the journey, someone who can be critical, not just from a lawyer point of view, but from an actual science point of view. What about that? Can you help us?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest source of criticism, have y'all ever been to that air monitoring website that Chevron has?
No.
Okay, so
Are you talking about fence line?
yeah, it's a website called richmondairmonitoring.org. I'll put in the chat for y'all to check it out. So this is at the bare minimum what the Chevron provides to the community. So you can do your own citizen science, community science, right? So it's a website, it's really simple, right? It's like an about page, right? And then the purpose is for you to understand emissions that are coming out and all the impacts, right? It's really inaccessible website, but here's an explanation on how to use this air quality gauge, and then you're going to go to this thing called measurements, and it'll be a live representation of what's going on with the refinery and what's going on with the emissions coming into the community. So the issue with this is that they only keep track of data for the last 90 days. So I couldn't even pull up data from the November 2023 flaring incident so we can even demonstrate what the impacts were, right? And so that's an issue. So it's a really inaccessible website, but the theory is that you can see all of the different compounds that are coming out of the refinery and just track it for yourself, right? As you can see, they're all pretty low, right? They're usually low all the time. Right? You at any given moment, it'll all be pretty low. They'll have all of the different compounds and what they mean, so at least you can kind of cross-reference all of these different compounds on the graph. They'll give you some data flags. And then basically you can see where this becomes the danger zone. Rarely on this tool will you see the danger zone, right? But what's really important about this website is that this is the Chevron Refinery's base level attempt to be transparent to y'all about refinery operations. This is actually a tool that is ran by a whole third-party entity based out of Sonoma County. There's some independent scientists. And so, but it's not accessible. No one really understands it. No one can talk to these Sonoma scientists. So this has been the main source of our feedback is that we do need independent third-party review. Even though Sonoma is supposed to be that third-party review, they're not really based in the community. So really empowering community to understand the data. We've been advocating for training of the community to do some of the third-party review. Because you're absolutely right. I mean, we could just be kind of talking in circles here if nobody really understands what's happening. So that's been a huge demand of this process.
Thank you for pointing that out. And I think that what we need to do, we're going to take one more really brief question from Peter. We are running a half an hour behind, and we have another vote to take. I'd like to invite, first of all, I want to remind people we'll be sending out the invitation for the 16th, because that's really the time when the experts are going to be there, and there'll be more time. But also, Dr. Lynch, I'm going to try to find a way to have you back if you're working on this project or not. So if you'll come.
Oh no, we gotta build. You know, like I said, after this, I was working on a blue new green deal for Richmond. I'm a commissioner.
There's a lot.
I'm very concerned about the whole state of affairs. So, you know, Point Richmond, y'all my people. And even after, like I said, series, we're kind of here just to write this report, but I'm invested in making sure this plan actually gets done, at least for the next 5 years. And so we're here because this has to improve. Like I was telling the committee, like I've lost all of my grandparents before the age of 75. You know, they all had lymphoma. You know, my family's from Richmond. You know, it's sad. And so yes, things have gotten better, but are they doing the best that they could be doing? And so we have to kind of call that question.
Thanks. Peter, let's take that one last brief question, and then we'll move on, and we'll run through the rest of the meeting as quickly as
Thank you
possible.
so much, Philip.
Peter?
Okay, well, looking at that website, the thing with chemistry and the way it affects people and the way it moves through the atmosphere, you can't, I don't think you could find one expert on a subject. It's a cross-disciplinary subject. So, you know, for instance, a lot of the chemicals that they list, like butane and propane and, you know, carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide, they're relatively innocuous. You know, we run into them every day. They're the ones that are released really don't affect you. The ones that do affect you are the ketones and the methyl chlorides and all the daughters of those chemicals. You know, they're the ones that actually affect people's health. But then you also have to take into account air movement, you know, with prevailing winds, and you know that the reason they only keep this data for 90 days is liability in case you got a group of people, and that's what you would need to do. You'd have to find a firm of experts. My father worked for a firm like this for a while. They were expert witnesses, and each one of them had their own particular expertise, and you'd have to get a firm like that together, you know, people that understand weather, air patterns and weather patterns, people that understand how various chemicals affect human health, exposure over time. So, you know, the fact that they have this website up, it's just a dog and pony show. It really doesn't help you in any way. It looks like it helps you. It's like political theater or something, or legal theater. I don't know. I think the closest you could come, considering you'd be doing this on a shoestring budget, the fact is the city of Richmond, and I meet people who worked for Chevron all the time around here, people who have retired, gotten other jobs. And, you know, so you should be able to find some retired chemical engineers like, you know, Dave Bleckinger. His wife was a chemical engineer working for Chevron. Obviously, she wouldn't want to testify against them, but you have a lot of people like that in the community today. So you could probably find some of those who might be willing to serve on a volunteer committee to talk about what chemicals are released that we should concentrate on, rather than look at this, you know, a flaring incident. You know, when you light a barbecue, you know, with, you know, lighter fluid, you're putting a lot of nasty chemicals in the air that you're breathing right away. There's a lot of stuff that's been in the news lately about you know, propane stoves in the house, gas stoves, and the effects on that with human health. And, you know, those of us who drive old cars and putting out pollutants. So what you need to do is you need to find experts that can help you concentrate on what you actually need to be concerned with, and then look at the historical data that is available and try to figure out what the pattern is. And then you could craft an argument about what they need to be concentrating on. This idea that they're capturing pollutants that are in flare incidents, you know, that's magic. That, you know, what are they going to have, a giant catalytic converter that it's blowing up through it? That's not happening. So
Please say that at the town hall.
so I think
Okay.
maybe a separate breakout talk, trying to find volunteers in the community that used to work for Chevron or one of the other oil companies. We have you know, refineries up in Martinez, same kind of folks work there. And maybe some, you know, again, some retired medical people that can help you with long-term exposure rates to things. So it's a very complicated system, and I think you probably have the tools in the community, but you have to find them. obviously nobody in this meeting is volunteering. So
Well,
It's
I
Do
think
you want
I
to do
think
a
there's
quick time check? It is 9 p.m.
Okay.
we really need to move on. I
Yeah,
think
I'm
it was a
done. That was
great
it.
point, and that's why I want to have Dr. Lynch back. But we are as late as we have ever been in a meeting that I've conducted. So I am going to thank you, Dr. Lynch. Promise to get that flyer out. I will forward any emails from you to Dr. Lynch, and I'll copy you on them so you can directly speak to her. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on the 16th.
Oh, I'll see you around.
All righty,
Have a
thanks.
good rest of your meeting. I really appreciate the time.
Oh,
Thank
it's
you.
a pleasure. Thanks for being here. Okay, so this is something we have to do because we need to make a vote, and I am very apologetic to the community briefs folks. So if you are community briefs folks and you don't have anything to report, we're going to skip it. But I do want to go to Charmaine and the LUDRC because we need to take that vote. And Charmaine is out of the room.
I'm here.
Oh, there you go. Thanks. I'm gonna push you to the front of the class because I don't know what happened to time today.
Okay, I am going to give everyone a summary of what happened at our LUDRC meeting today. It was well attended. We had about 15 people, and the subject was Marcia Ballier showed us slides of what the pump station at Dornan Drive and Brickyard Cove Road will look like. And I'm really happy to report there's quite a few improvements since we talked about it 1 or 2 months ago. So I'm going to tell you the improvements. There's a wall around the equipment, and that's made of cinder block brick blocks. And that's going to be raised to be 10 feet tall. It will cover most of the equipment, so it will be hidden from view from the cars and people on the Bay Trail. In addition, the city has committed to redo the road around the project, and that means grading and helping with one of the low areas that causes puddling, new curbs, new gutters, and also redoing the Bay Trail for that area. Very happy about that. As far as the Bay Trail goes, it will be improved. It will have the width, which is the normal Bay Trail width, is 10 feet wide with 2 3-foot shoulders in that area. The gates around the equipment, which are now kind of wire fence looking, they're going to be solid metal, so you don't see through them. And then they're going to add plantings all around. And Marcia is very knowledgeable about all the plantings. I did not write down all the names of the plants, but they will be mostly smaller shrubs that don't take a lot of maintenance. So in the long run, this is going to be a much improved corner. We're really tired of this corner. It's really ugly and just horrible to drive by every day. So everyone is looking forward to getting something completed. The LUDRC approved this project as it was presented with all votes in favor. And now we want to ask the membership to vote for approval of this project so the city can go forward to do the upgrades that they plan to do. Does anyone have any questions before we vote?
Edie, can you throw that poll up?
All right, this is once again a poll
Thank you, Charmaine.
for Point Richmond Neighborhood Council dues paid members that are in current standing with us. All right, here is your poll. Sorry, my bad. My bad. I picked the wrong poll and it's here. Poll closing in 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Poll ending now. Here are your results.
Okie dokie. Thank you, community. That letter will go out to the city in the next couple of days.
Philip, can I make a motion?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I make a motion that we suspend this meeting currently, the rest of the meeting, and pick it up and redo it for the next month, given the late hour? Otherwise, we are going to be, if we continue with the meeting, I believe that we might end up being very, very late. So, do you see that, is it anything on that agenda that is pressing that needs to be spoken about this month? And if not, I would make a motion to suspend the meeting and then double up on the updates for next month.
What I would say is if any of these community organizations have something that is upcoming, and I do apologize, we've never done this before to my knowledge, Peter might know, but I'd like to, if you have an event happening next week, shout it out real quick. And I do
Yeah.
apologize for the community groups.
Philip, this is Bonnie Jo.
Hi, hon.
Point Richmond History Association. We have our first lecture co-sponsored with the Richmond Public Library this Wednesday at the Community Center at 6:30. This is the first of a series involving topics pertaining to Richmond and Point Richmond during World War II. This coming Wednesday will be Jim Davis giving his talk on Italian Americans in World War II, especially as it pertains to Richmond and Point Richmond. There will be tacos from Maya Taqueria, first come, first serve, while the supplies last. And it should be very entertaining, educational, and fun, and we hope you'll all be there.
Thank you very much, Bonnie Jo.
6:30 Wednesday.
Thank you. Anybody have, anyone who is scheduled speakers who have anything? No?
We have Sally Tobin with a raised hand.
Okay, I apologize, Sally.
No problem. I'd like to announce an upcoming event that is this Saturday. This is called Adapting Richmond Shoreline and Industrial Legacy, a community conversation on building a resilient future. And this is sponsored by the city of Richmond, and it has to do with the intersection between sea level rise and Richmond's legacy contamination. So it's a hybrid. I've put the registration link into the chat, so please go to that. It's a hybrid meeting presented both in person in the city council chambers as well as on Zoom. It's going to be recorded, and it involves speakers, including Claudia Jimenez as the vice mayor who's opening it, and John Joya, Cesar Zepeda, Lena Velasco, and Doria Robinson are speaking in the first panel. And then the second panel is Gail McLaughlin, Christina Hill, who studies groundwater rise and contamination at UC Berkeley, Sherry Paget, who's worked on the Richmond Southeast Shoreline Community Action Group for over 20 years. Keith Merkel's going to be talking about life beneath the bay surface. He's an eelgrass expert. And Katie McKnight is going to talk about using nature-based solutions. So please, everybody, go and have a good time. And refreshments, childcare, and Spanish translation. Spanish translation is available for both Zoom attendees and in-person attendees, but the childcare and the refreshments are only available to those who come in person.
Thank you,
If you
Sally.
could kindly repeat the date and time, please.
Saturday, this coming Saturday, September 28th, from 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m.
And the location is?
the city council chambers at
Okay.
440, I think it's called Civic Center
I
Drive.
got it. I got
Yeah.
that part.
It's in the
Thank you.
chat, Kate,
Thank you.
if you want
Thank
to
you.
join by Zoom. Thanks, Sally. And I'm so sorry that I don't actually remember any meeting ever running like this. So I don't know what happened. Anyway, I'm going to we lost our secretary because she had to go. So I'm going to thank everybody for hanging in this long. I'm going to apologize to those community groups who didn't speak, but next month is scheduled to be open mic night. We don't have a regular speaker planned, and that will give us an opportunity to talk about our organizations and our passions and our hopes for the neighborhood. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining. Again, sorry it ran a little late and it was a little convoluted. We will see you next month, and maybe we'll see you at Dumpster Day. And if you can throw an extra $5 in your wallet as a little donation to PRNC, we'd appreciate it. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Night.